Have you ever wondered why your deepest desires seem to govern you, even when you believe yourself to be in control? Why the more you repress a thought, the louder it echoes in the caverns of your unconscious? Beneath the thin veil of civility, you present to the world something ancient stirs, a force so primal, so undeniable that to ignore it is to build your life atop a trembling fault line. What if the very mind you trust has long been colonized by instincts you pretend not to see? We are not who we think we are. We are the forgotten dreams of our ancestors, the restless shadows that slip between our thoughts, whispering in a language older than time. It is not logic that shapes you. It is not willpower. It is the ceaseless undercurrent of longing stitched into the fabric of your soul, wearing masks of reason and morality. You were taught to believe you choose your path. But what if your choices have been orchestrated by forces you dare not name? The civilized self is a fragile performance, a fragile shell trembling before the roaring abyss of instincts we have tried to bury. And at the core of these instincts, one command reigns supreme: the pursuit of union, of creation, of dissolution into something larger than oneself. Sexuality is not an act. It is not even a desire. It is the architect of your fears, your ambitions, your silent wars. To deny this is not wisdom. It is blindness cultivated in the soil of fear. Every dream you forget, every impulse you rationalize, every craving you label as mistake, they are not random. They are the fingerprints of something deeper trying to break through. You can clothe it in religion, morality, or self-discipline, but it will find a way to seep into your life, twisting itself into your relationships, your passions, your failures. What you call fate is often the unconscious claiming its due. If you are brave enough to stay, if you are willing to look beyond the comfortable lies you tell yourself, you will see a truth so raw, so electrifying, that it will shatter your illusions forever. But be warned. Once you glimpse the machinery hidden behind the theater of your mind, you will never again be able to pretend you are the sole master of your destiny. Everything you thought you understood about yourself will collapse, and only then will the real journey begin. You believe you are awake. You believe you are steering the vessel of your life with steady hands, whispering orders into the silence, as though the deep sea beneath you would obey your will. But something ancient watches you from below, patient, relentless, weaving currents stronger than your oaths. What you call consciousness is merely a raft built upon an ocean you refuse to map. And it is there, beneath every carefully chosen word, every dignified thought, every act of supposed rationality, that a tempest brews in your name. Tell me, have you never felt it? That sudden swell of yearning for something forbidden, that shadow in your chest rising when you least expect, it breaking through the armor of your mind as if it had been waiting for you to blink, to falter, to remember. Every time you glance away from your desires, every time you dress them in shame or denial, they grow stronger, like wild beasts fed in the dark. Civilization taught you to tighten the leash, to silence the roaring inside. But it never taught you to listen. You were never meant to eradicate the forces that pulse within you. You were meant to know them, to dance with them at the edge of the abyss, not to pretend they were never there. And yet here you stand, trembling beneath your skin, cloaked in distractions, rituals, and borrowed virtues. What you have forgotten, what you were made to forget, is that the mind itself was sculpted by what you now fear, not by ideals, not by reason, but by the relentless, primal command to become, to merge, to create life, to devour life. There is a truth you have been taught to dread, a whisper buried so deeply within you that you mistake it for silence. Sex rules your mind not because you are weak, but because you are alive. It is not a sin to be resisted, nor a hunger to be shamed. It is the original architect of your dreams, your madness, your sublimations. Every poem you have ever loved, every revolution you have ever admired, every fleeting moment of transcendence you have ever craved, all are children of this same forgotten parent. But to see this is to unravel the tapestry you call identity. It is to admit that your highest aspirations and your darkest impulses are not enemies, but echoes of the same sacred fire, And so you close your eyes, you turn your head, you pretend that the force moving through your veins is someone else's ghost. It is easier that way, safer, until it is not. The dreams you dare not speak of, they know. The faces that linger in your memory when night falls, they know. The trembling of your hands when you stand too close to beauty, the bitter ache in your chest when life passes too swiftly by, they are the bloodied footprints of a force you tried to lock away, but which has never ceased its pilgrimage toward the surface. You call it instinct, you call it temptation, but these are only names you have been given to shield yourself from the truth, that the mind was never sovereign, that the mind was born in servitude to something older, wilder, more sacred than control. Tell me, when you reach for success, for power, for love, do you truly believe it is logic guiding your hand? Or is it something deeper, something forgotten, moving you like a marionette stitched from centuries of longing? There are no simple answers here. There is no easy redemption. To walk this path is to enter a labyrinth where each turn leads not outward, but further in, deeper into the chambers you were taught to seal shut with the nails of shame and fear. You will hear the echoes of voices you thought you had silenced, the moaning of desires you buried in gardens of denial, the shuddering cry of the self you betrayed to appease a world terrified of its own reflection. And somewhere along the way, if you dare to continue, if you resist the desperate urge to retreat into the hollow comforts of the known, you will glimpse it, the terrible and beautiful truth. Not a truth delivered from outside, not a command from some celestial father, but a revelation rising from within, as raw and undeniable as breath. The question is not whether you are ruled by forces beyond your understanding. The question is whether you are willing to see it, to truly see it, without flinching. To sit at the table with the parts of yourself you have been taught to exile, to hold their gaze, to hear their stories, to let them speak in the ancient tongue of blood and bone and memory. What you will find there is not depravity, not corruption, but the lost music of your becoming, the sacred wound through which all meaning bleeds into the world. And perhaps, just perhaps, you will come to understand that the life you have been living was only a fraction of the life you were meant to claim. You have been taught to carve your desires into manageable shapes, to bind your hunger within words like ambition, romance, purpose. But hunger does not forget its true name merely because you call it something else. Deep within you, beyond the brittle architecture of your social self, the primordial force still roars, demanding to be witnessed, demanding to be known. You are not made to be sterile. You are not designed to be domesticated by ideals that have long since lost their roots in anything real. Look around you. Behind every towering monument of progress, behind every whispered prayer and polished virtue, the same invisible thread coils. The urgent drive toward union, toward transformation, toward a shattering ecstasy that both births and consumes. You can clothe it, you can blindfold it, but you cannot kill it. It waits. The tragedy is not that you desire. The tragedy is that you have been severed from the soul of your own longing. What was once sacred has been buried under shame, hidden under myths of control, exiled to the shadowlands of your psyche. And yet, in your dreams, it speaks. In your fears, it breathes. In the trembling between one heartbeat and the next, it reminds you that you are not a machine nor a mask, nor a hollow vessel moving through obligations. You are a storm clothed in flesh, a longing that took form, a cosmic question still echoing through every nerve and sinew. But how long can you ignore it before it turns against you? How long can you deny the architect of your very being before your dreams rot into nightmares? Your passions curdle into addictions. Your love decays into a hunger that consumes but never satisfies. There is a doorway hidden in your life, a doorway most never find because it demands a price few are willing to pay. It is not built of wood or stone, but of the truths you dare not speak, the impulses you have chained in the dungeon of your polite self. To cross this threshold is to allow the forces you have been taught to fear to become your teachers. It is to see your own darkness not as an enemy, but as a map. But make no mistake, the path through this doorway is not clean. It will strip you of illusions you once thought were sacred. It will force you to kneel before the parts of yourself you tried to annihilate. It will reveal that your mind, the very seat of your precious identity, has been shaped, molded, seduced by the ancient command of desire, long before you ever spoke your first word. There will be moments along this path when you will ache to turn back, when the gravity of your old comforts will claw at your ankles, begging you to forget what you have glimpsed, when the specters of guilt and propriety will wrap themselves around your throat, whispering that to admit this truth is to lose everything you have built. And perhaps it is. Perhaps what must be lost was never truly yours to begin with. Perhaps what collapses was never alive, only scaffolding propped against the endless sky. Do you not feel it already? Stirring in the pit of your stomach, threading itself through the marrow of your bones. That desperate, terrified longing, not just to survive but to be. To taste the raw, unmediated pulse of existence without apology, without masks, without chains. There is no peace in pretending, no salvation in exile. Your instincts do not wither in the shadows where you lock them away. They grow twisted, monstrous, feeding on your fear and self-loathing. And the more you deny them, the more they become the unseen tyrants of your fate. You fall in love with the wrong people. You sabotage your own dreams. You chase illusions, mistaking them for salvation only to find yourself emptier than before. It is not punishment. It is not random. It is your soul's rebellion against the betrayal of its own fire. Every mistake you have made, every failure you have suffered, is a signpost pointing to the place you have refused to look. If you have the courage, and courage is the only currency that matters here, you will realize that the force you have called dangerous, dirty, or sinful is none other than the fountainhead of all your vitality. It is the wild God within you, still singing, still raging, still reaching for the stars that you once dreamt of before the world taught you to settle for ceilings. Sex, longing, union. They are not traps. They are invitations. Not to debase yourself, but to remember yourself, to reclaim the pieces you shattered in the name of safety, to become, at last, not a tame shadow of what you might have been, but a living, breathing testament to the mystery that dared to awaken in your blood. The way forward is not the annihilation of desire, it is its transfiguration. To walk the path of the self is to descend into the sacred furnace of your own longing and emerge not burned but reborn, to see that beneath every forbidden impulse lies a secret doorway to a greater wholeness, not the brittle perfection you were taught to chase, but the raw, imperfect, incandescent truth of who you are. You will not find instructions carved in stone. You will not be given easy answers or comforting maps. There is only the call, the fire, the unbearable yearning, and the faint, fierce memory that once, long ago, you were not afraid to burn. You cannot silence what you refuse to. Here, you cannot chain what was never meant to be caged. The more you battle your own nature, the more your life becomes a war you cannot name, a quiet erosion gnawing at the edges of your soul. Every unspoken yearning gathers weight in your blood. Every buried impulse whispers its defiance through your breath. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to fracture from within. A subtle, daily betrayal so familiar you no longer notice its sting. You tell yourself you are civilized, composed, righteous. But inside, the abandoned parts of you are setting fires in the dark, trying to remind you of everything you have forgotten to feel. Memories you thought had withered return in the smallest moments, the brush of a stranger's hand, the curve of a smile half remembered, the sudden ache when music stirs something nameless inside you. You call them nostalgia, you call them accidents, but they are neither. They are reminders. They are echoes from the deeper waters of your being, where sex is not an act but a force of genesis, a wild language that speaks in symbols and dreams and silent tears. How many times have you stood at the threshold of your own truth and turned away, calling it danger? How many times have you mistaken the stirring of life within you for the threat of destruction? You were not wrong to tremble. Transformation always carries the scent of death. But it is not yourself that would die. only the mask that has worn your name for too long. You were not made to be sterile, to live untouched by the hunger that once birthed stars. You were not born to spend your days polishing a façade, measuring your worth by rules that cannot see the fire in your veins. Somewhere in your depths you still remember what it felt like to want without shame, to touch without fear, to love without bargaining your soul in return. That memory was not an accident. It was a prophecy, a seed planted in you long before you could speak, waiting for the day you would be strong enough or desperate enough to break open the shell of lies and bloom. And yet, when the first crack appears, when the first glimpse of something raw and real leaks into your carefully controlled life, you panic. You call it sin. You call it madness. But it is neither. It is the resurrection of what you were always meant to become. You have spent years building walls to protect yourself from yourself. Each stone placed with trembling hands, each layer mortared with guilt and obedience. You thought the walls would keep you safe. But look closely. Can you not feel the walls trembling now? Can you not hear the muffled beating of a heart you tried to suffocate? Safety, it turns out, was only a slower kind of death. And freedom, true freedom, is not the absence of danger, but the willingness to dance with it. To hold your own feral hunger in your hands and recognize it not as an enemy, but as a long-lost part of your own divinity. To see that the war was never between good and evil, but between fear and the sacred terror of being fully alive. This is why your mind is ruled silently, irrevocably, by what you pretend not to see. Not because you are weak, not because you are broken, but because deep inside you are still whole. And wholeness demands reckoning. Wholeness demands that no part of you be exiled, no truth disowned. You cannot amputate your instincts without amputating your soul. You cannot deny your longing without denying your right to be here, breathing, yearning, breaking, healing. It is not morality that will save you. It is not obedience that will bring you peace. It is only the fierce and fragile act of turning toward the fire, of letting it consume what was never real, and illuminate what was waiting in the dark all along. If you listen closely, you will hear it even now. The pulse beneath the noise, the drumbeat beneath your distracted mind. A song older than words, older than gods, older than the fear that has kept you caged. It sings not of destruction, but of remembrance, of the sacred wound you were born carrying, of the home you have always sought not in others, not in ideals, but in the unclaimed territories of your own soul. Do not ask whether you are ready. Readiness is a myth told to those who fear the unknown. The truth is that you are already in motion, already spiraling toward the place where all your denials fall away like ash, and only what is essential remains. And when you reach that threshold, trembling, exhausted, naked of all pretense, you will see it for what it truly is, not a monster, not a curse, but the forgotten heart of your existence, still beating, still burning, still begging to be seen. You will realize that the shame was never yours, that the fear was inherited, worn like a borrowed cloak, that the hunger you were taught to fear is the same hunger that once shaped mountains, carved rivers, pulled suns into being. That to feel it is not to fall from grace, it is to return to it. You stand now at the threshold where words dissolve and the old maps crumble to dust. You can feel it, can't you? That trembling just beneath your skin, that dissonance between what you were told to believe and what you can no longer deny. It hums through your bones like the distant memory of thunder. You try to look away, to reason your way back to safety, but something deeper holds your gaze. The illusions you clung to so fiercely now seem paper-thin, barely able to conceal the roaring pulse beneath. And the truth, terrible and beautiful, presses against the walls of your mind. You were never meant to be contained. There is a violence in birth, just as there is a violence in awakening. It is not gentle to be ripped from the womb of forgetting. It is not painless to watch your false selves burn away in the fire of recognition. But within this agony, there is a strange, fierce tenderness, the kind reserved for those who dare to meet themselves without armor. Do you feel the fear rising in your throat? Good. Fear is the surest sign that you are near something real. Fear is the tremor that precedes revelation, It is not here to stop you. It is here to consecrate the crossing. Your mind, ruled so long by shadows you refuse to name, begins to falter in its old defenses. Questions you once buried rise like phantoms. Who am I when I strip away the stories I was given? What hungers still live in the rooms I boarded shut? What dreams did I forsake in the name of survival? The mind stammers, caught between the urge to retreat and the unbearable call to advance. And you, trembling at the edge, must decide whether to remain a ghost among ghosts or to leap into the terrifying vastness of your own untamed being. Listen carefully. The force that has ruled your mind is not your enemy. It is not your shame. It is your inheritance. It is the river of life that carved you into existence, that shaped your hands, your mouth, your dreams. Every act of denial has only swollen its current, made it more insistent, more desperate to be recognized. You feared it because you misunderstood it. You tried to control it because you did not trust yourself to contain it. But it was never meant to be caged. It was meant to be honored, to be woven into the tapestry of your conscious life as a sacred, untamable thread. And so you stand here, between two worlds. In one, you remain asleep, numbing yourself with stories that shrink your hunger into manageable ache, that clip the wings of your soul to fit within the tiny cages of expectation. In the other, you awaken and pay the price that all true living demands, the price of uncertainty, of heartbreak, of standing naked before the relentless storm of your own existence. Do you feel the weight of it now? The sacred heaviness of knowing that no one else can walk this path for you? That no rule, no dogma, no promise of safety can substitute for the burning aliveness waiting in your chest? What waits beyond this? Crossing is not perfection. It is not bliss without end. It is the raw, unfiltered experience of being, glorious and terrifying in equal measure. It is the marriage of your light and your shadow, your nobility and your hunger, your terror and your longing. It is you, unmasked, unashamed, irreducible. And once you see it, once you step beyond the thin veil that held your world together, you can never return to pretending. The hunger you feared will become your guide. The desires you exiled will become your compass. The fire you tried to extinguish will become your light. But make no mistake, the journey does not end here. This is only the beginning of a descent, so profound that it will tear from you every borrowed dream, every counterfeit virtue. It will strip away even the hope of certainty, leaving you raw, open, magnificent in your imperfection. And somewhere in that nakedness, in that howling void where identity collapses, you will find a different kind of truth. A truth not handed down by culture or authority, but unearthed from the soil of your own becoming. A truth that burns not to destroy you, but to reveal the indestructible core that has been waiting, patient as stone, for you to return. You have been ruled by what you refuse to see, but you have also been guided by it. Every pain, every longing, every restless ache was a signpost pointing home. You were never lost, only sleeping, only hiding, only pretending. And now, as the old walls crack and the first shafts of forbidden light pierce through, you are being called to remember. Not to fix yourself, not to perfect yourself, but to embrace the whole, trembling, radiant totality of your being. To look into the mirror of your own hunger and see not sin but sanctity. The choice remains. It always has. And as you stand here, trembling, uncertain, alive, know this: the self does not wait forever. The soul grows impatient. The forces you have exiled will not remain silent much longer. They will find ways to erupt into your life, whether in dreams, in illnesses, in sudden collisions of fate. Or you can choose here and now to walk willingly into the fire, to reclaim what was never truly lost, to become at last what you were always meant to be. There is a silence that falls after the final breath of a storm, a silence not of emptiness, but of sacred reckoning. You are standing within it now, whether you realize it or not. Beneath the ashes of what you once thought you were, a new pulse stirs, fragile, hesitant, but unmistakably alive. You have glimpsed, perhaps only for a moment, the truth that was never lost, only hidden. And in that glimpse, something ancient has begun to awaken inside you, like the slow opening of a flower in a forgotten garden. Not everything will make sense yet. It is not meant to. Awakening is not a matter of logic, but of gravity, a deep magnetic pull toward the parts of yourself you had long abandoned. Even now, questions you cannot yet name flicker at the edges of your mind, like stars, slowly blinking into existence. What if the hunger you feared was your greatest teacher? What if the longing you denied was the only compass that never lied? What if the shadow you ran from was carrying the gift you needed most? You may try to return to the comfort of forgetting, to the smooth surface of certainty, but the crack has already been made, and through it, the light and the darkness both pour in, inseparable, inevitable. You are no longer the same, even if you tell yourself you are. Even if you try to fold yourself back into the shape that once fit so neatly within the world's expectations. Some part of you has already crossed the threshold and no gatekeeper can turn you back now. You will feel it in strange moments, in the weight of a lover's touch, in the bittersweet ache of an old memory, in the sudden, unbearable beauty of a sunset glimpsed between towers of stone. You will feel it when you are least prepared. That deep echoing call from within urging you not to sleep again, not to retreat into numbness, not to betray the self that has dared to speak. It will not shout. It will not demand. It will whisper, insistently, persistently, like the tide shaping the shore. And you will have to choose again and again whether to listen. The forces that once ruled your mind will not disappear. They are not your enemies. They are your inheritance. They will rise within you with new faces, new questions, new temptations. But now you will know. Now you will recognize their voice. Now you will no longer mistake the call to awakening for the threat of ruin. You will understand that to feel deeply is not to be weak, that to hunger fiercely is not to be broken, that to tremble before the vastness of your own longing is the first act of true strength. And so you walk forward, not with certainty but with courage, not with maps drawn by other hands but with the trembling compass of your own reborn heart. Each step is both a loss and a reclamation. Each breath is both a surrender and a prayer. You are no longer seeking to be made whole. You are remembering that you always were. Beneath the shame, beneath the fear, beneath the layers of forgetting, you are, and have always been, complete. There is a symbol carved into the architecture of your soul, waiting to be read, the serpent devouring its own tail. The eternal return. The cycle of death and rebirth, of descent and resurrection. You are not outside this cycle. You are its living, breathing continuation. And as you spiral ever deeper into yourself, you will come to see. The hunger you feared was never a curse. It was the first language you spoke with the divine. Nothing you have lost was ever truly yours. Nothing you have feared is greater than the strength quietly growing within you. And nothing you long for is outside of you. It is simply waiting to be claimed by the self you are still becoming. So do not rush to name what you feel now. Let it breathe. Let it live. Let it unravel the parts of you still clinging to the familiar, still bargaining for safety at the cost of your soul. This is not the end. This is the first trembling step of a new beginning, where every ending carries within it the seed of a greater life. If these words have stirred something within you, if you feel the old walls crumbling, even if only a little, then you already know this journey cannot be walked alone. It demands witnesses. It demands companions who dare to feel, to question, to remember alongside you. If this resonance lives within you, then I invite you. Become part of this awakening. Subscribe to Archemind. Like this video not as an act of habit, but as a silent vow to yourself. Comment, not merely with words, but with the echoes of your becoming. Share this message as a torch in the darkness for others still groping for the way back to themselves. Because this is not just another video. It is a key, a fracture, a beginning. And beginnings, as you now know, are never small things.